What's going on, slavetards? Today I want to do a video about one of the most tyrannical new taxes from the big beautiful bill. It is something that is unprecedented in America, and that is income tax on negative income. Income tax on losses, or for short, loser tax, right? And this is specifically for gamblers. This pertains to gamblers, okay? So for those of you that don't know how gambling and taxes work, you could never ever write off any tax losses from gambling on your taxes. You could never deduct gambling losses from your taxes. You could never do that. The only thing you could do was take losses against gambling winnings, right? But that's not even really a thing, right? If you win $500 playing blackjack, and then the very next night you lose $500 playing blackjack, you have won nothing, right? So being able to take losses against winnings, I mean, that's just the way gambling works, right? You have no winnings if at the end of the year you're a net loser, right? Well, this has changed now, and it affects not only people that are recreational gamblers that are playing slots and blackjacks and going to Vegas for a weekend, but it also affects professional gamblers. And really, the only place that you can have professional gambling, there's only like a couple areas where it's even possible to be professional at gambling. And those areas are sports bettors, handicappers. There are people that are able to do research and understand the game and the nuances enough to where they can beat the spread and consistently win. But there are very, very few people that can do that. But the other one is poker. And in poker, there are very few people that can do that in poker too, but there are people that consistently do it and make a living, and they're called professional poker players. And they're professional because they can play that game and be consistently profitable at it. And the way they do this is by edge. And the way they get edges is by playing games against worse players, by being able to read people and having a skill set that other people don't, right? And playing thousands upon thousands of hands so they pick up on nuances that a rookie couldn't, right? But even for those, even for professional poker players, it's very difficult to make a living because you have what's called rake. And rake is, say you're playing, here in Peppermill, if you're playing a cash game, they charge you $5 every dealer change, and they change a dealer twice an hour. So it's $10 an hour, which is a pretty low rate game. But in other places, they do a percentage of the pot, usually up to $5 or $6 a pot, maybe 10% of the pot up to like maximum $5 or $6. In this, you're paying for the dealers, you're paying for the table, you don't have to deal, you don't have to do anything, you just sit there and play. So that's how the casinos make their money on that game. There's no edge, right? You're basically paying for a service on that. So you've got to beat the rake. Your edge has to be bigger than the rake. And in tournaments, they charge a percentage of the tournament buy-in. Like in the main event, I think it's like 6% that goes to the people facilitating the tournament, because it costs money to do that. You got to you got a venue, you have to get tables, you have to have, dealers and stuff like that. So you have to be, as a professional, you have to be so good that not only can you consistently beat other players, but you will have to beat them enough to offset what's called the rake, or the cost of the game, right? And some of the biggest super high roller crushers in the world, right? The people that have won 60, 50, $60 million in poker tournaments, these guys really are not winning that much, right? Because they have buy-ins and they don't cash every tournament. And maybe they have 60 millions of winnings, but maybe it costs them, $55 million worth of buy-ins to get that $60 million. Now they're still profitable and they can make a good living, but that is because they can write off 100% of their losses or their tournament buy-ins against any winnings they have. But plus, if you're a professional, you can write off any expenses, hotel rooms, those kind of things. So the big super high roller crushers, or even, tournament pros, or even just poker pros in general, they declare themselves a professional, and then they can write off meals and hotel rooms and travel, and they travel all over the place. So that's expenses that they can write off too, right? So in the big beautiful bill, they have changed it to where you can only now write off 90% of your losses, right? And when I say losses, they don't even care about your gains. This is just your losses, right? So used to, if you made $100,000 in winnings, say you bought into $100,000 worth of tournaments or whatever, and you had $100,000 worth of winnings, right? Then you lost $100,000 playing cash or tournaments. It was offset, right? You have zero winnings because you have zero winnings. You don't have any earnings. You have zero income, right? And that's how it should be. That's how it should be, right? You can't levy income tax on somebody that has a negative income until now. Until now with the big beautiful bill. And now with the big beautiful bill, if you had $100,000 worth of wins and then you had $100,000 worth of losses, you could only write off $90,000 worth of losses. So even though you broke absolutely even, you would owe money on $10,000 you never even had. This is a loser tax. You're taxing income. You're levying income on tax on no income, on zero, and on negative income even, right? So say you're a super high roller crusher, right? And say you win $5 million, right, in a year. But it cost you $4.5 million worth of buy-ins, so your net is $500,000, right? Used to, you would have to pay taxes on $500,000, but not anymore, right? Not anymore. If you have $4.5 million worth of losses, you can only write off 90% of that, right? Which would be, $400,000 or whatever, instead of 90% of that. So yeah, $400,000. You can only write off $4 million instead of $4.5 million, right? So now, instead of paying taxes on $500K, you have to pay taxes on a million when you only profited $500K. So now you profited $500K, but you have to pay taxes on $950,000 or $1 million. Therefore, all your profits have been wiped out by taxes on money that you didn't even make, right? That's tyranny. That's just straight tyranny. Yeah, you have people in the media like this moron in this clip right here.
I bet most Americans don't realize that prior to now you had 100% deduction on gambling losses and probably be surprised by that.
But doesn't that make sense, I think, to most people? From in a way, it's their business, right? It's no different than if a baker has a store and you add up all the goods, the labor, the this and the that, and if it's 100K revenue and 100K in cost,
sure it's different. Sure it's different.
How so?
Because what about your stock portfolio, Blake? I'm sure you make a lot of winnings in your stock portfolio.
I wish I had more.
But let's say you had losses.
Okay.
You know what you're capped at?
Minus $3,000.
$3,000.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay.
So that's a cap on actually investing in growing companies, creating many more jobs, and yet we're allowing 100% deduction on your gambling losses.
But my stock portfolio is not a business, though.
I have my own FanDuel account. I'm not arguing this from a paternalistic standpoint.
Right.
I'm arguing this from an economic standpoint. This is not what we should be doing with the tax code. Is basically creating between winners and losers within it. And so like if we're going to say that you can have a $3,000 cap when you're investing in the stock market on the amount of losses you can take, but you can have 100% on your gambling losses, it seems like that's a little bit out of whack to me.
But for
that doesn't even understand the issue, right? This guy says that you can only write off $3,000 worth of losses in stocks, but you can write off 100% of your gambling losses, which is incorrect. You could never write off a single dollar of gambling losses ever, right? There was no deduction for gambling losses, right? The only thing you could do is offset winnings. You couldn't say, go to the casino in Vegas for a weekend and blow 100 grand and then, you make $150,000 at your job, but because you lost $100,000 in Vegas, you want to pay taxes on $50,000. No, that was never. You could, if you made $150,000 and went to Vegas and blew $100,000 on a blackjack table, sorry, you have zero deduction. You could never ever deduct that, right? You could never ever deduct losses, gambling losses, ever. The only thing you could do is take your losses against any winnings, right? Which is common sense. They're not winnings if you didn't win it, right? So when this guy and this idiot in this clip says you can write off 100% of your gambling losses, but only 3,000 of your stock losses, that's a lie. It's a lie. Not only can you deduct or write off $3,000 of your stock losses, you can do that on top of all losses up to the amount of your gains. So say you made $100,000 in a year in stock market, right? But you lost $130K. You can actually write off $103,000. So 100% of your gains can be wrote off, and an additional $3,000. So it's always been better than gambling. Always, right? Gambling has never been able to take anything against regular income. It just offset losses, the only thing. So you have these idiots out there, these greaseballs in the government, right? And supposedly there's this big bipartisan Congress that wants to change this, that wants to put it back the way it is. But here's how our Congress works. Here's why this may not happen. It's because they already tried to introduce a bill and 100% of people signed on for it except for one guy. And that one guy didn't sign on to it because he wanted some unrelated thing that he wanted put it in the bill, so he just nixed the whole thing. This is the way our government works, right? Once you sign something in law, it's very difficult to reverse it because everybody has their own agenda in the swamp and, they want their little thing in there. So even though a tyrannical law just came into effect that effectively taxes people on negative income, levies income tax on no income, the chances of it getting repealed are very difficult because everybody has their own agenda, right? You have people out there like Ted Cruz, like a poker player. He's like, yeah, we need to get this thing, reversed, except if they don't do it by 2026, it's over, right? It's over. And the likelihood of Congress taking this up when you have greaseballs on TV talking about this, like this greaseball I just showed, is slim to none. So this shows you the tyranny of our country. Now they're reaching into people's bank accounts and just straight up taking money. It's not even a tax. It's straight up theft. Peace.